Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, I'm Nerdist Dave, and today I'm joined by Rose McCurdy, also known as the RPG Mom, over
Hi,
on TikTok. How are you doing today?
I'm really good. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on. You know, TikTok has been like my favorite hunting ground for guests lately. Well, like it's so much, it's like new, right? Like it's the new
Right.
shiny thing. And it's like, little, I think it's one of the more innovative things to happen in the space in a while where there's a lot of conversations going on. There's a lot of
Yeah,
different people talking. I mean, you guys just did a charity stream over there called Inclusion Check.
we did. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We had it was a 24-hour stream. We played a couple of games. Some of them people are familiar with, some of them people aren't familiar with. Um and it was amazing. We raised $4,000 for Tomorrow Youth Repertory, which is they use D&D to help teach like communication and connection and team building with underprivileged youth. So it was pretty cool event.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is that the organization that Barnaby's involved with?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's because I've had them on in the past and talked to them, and that sounded right up their alley.
Yeah. Barnaby GM'd their game during the stream.
Oh,
So
nice. So Barnaby was one of the GMs. I believe you guys had Dead Aussie Gamer on.
we did Dead Aussie Gamer, the Plot Doctor, and Brooklyn Tuesday, and Barnaby were the four
Nice.
GMs. Yeah.
So let's rewind a little bit and have you kind of introduce yourself and tell people
Oh,
a little bit
sure.
about you.
Sure. So I'm Rose. I'm an ordained clergy woman. I'm also like a lifelong gamer, RPGer. It's funny because I'm kind of a hipster. Like I came about role playing the opposite direction than most people do. But right now I stream a Vampire the Masquerade game on Twitch. It's called San Antonio by Night. Um, and I'm a mom and an artist and just an all around general nerd.
TikToker, Instagrammer. Uh, it,
TikTok, Instagram.
I'm like
Yeah.
fascinated by the combination. It is a very weird combination in a good way. In a good way.
Yeah, just like regular old redheaded clergy nerd. Like,
Yeah, they're just falling from the
totally
sky.
normal.
So you say you came to the hobby from the opposite direction that most people would. What do you mean by that?
Sure. So I think like a lot of people think that D&D is like the gateway,
Hmm.
like the gateway game. And most people start in D&D or a D&D adjacent like Pathfinder or something like that. And then they branch off into more the other games. Um, I started off with Vampire in high school and then went to Anomaly and Shadowrun and Deadlands and like all these other through the breach, right, like all these other ones. And then only in the last year did I play Pathfinder, and in the last 3 months have I only been playing D&D.
So you're brand new
um
to D&D, but you've been
I'm
playing other
brand new
things.
to
Yeah.
D&D. I started D&D in just in July, so right about the time I started TikTok as well. um and so that's what I mean, but like I came the opposite way.
Yeah.
um because most people start with D&D or Pathfinder and then kind of find their way elsewhere. um and I guess I just came about the hobby kind of in a different direction than most people do. So
Yeah, I my first game wasn't D&D either.
oh
Like
yeah.
but when I say that with a caveat, like I played a session or two of Gamma World, saw
Okay.
the red box, and then would not touch RPGs for another 4 or 5 years, right?
Okay.
Because I was introduced when I was like super young, barely knew what was going on, And then a couple years later, then we actually started playing D&D. So, I don't even, I think it barely even counts.
Yeah.
Rivers is asking, do you think you'll put shorter videos up on YouTube channel? Well, there are videos on YouTube of you playing Vampire the Masquerade.
There are. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The we stream on Twitch, and then the episodes get transferred over. But they are long episodes. They're like 3 to 4 hour episodes. But they are on YouTube, so you can watch them after.
So, are you like an emo kid or a goth kid?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we joke that that's actually the reason I became a clergy person, is just so I can like get away with wearing black and being with people when they're dying. Like it's just like goth kid ramped up professionally.
So what was that experience like, coming, being kind of nerdy, playing RPGs, and then going to seminary?
Yeah, it's there's actually, like, I think there's a lot more nerds in the religious community and religious leaders community than I think people realize.
Well, those people are really nerdy about that subject at the very least, right?
Right. I mean, like, we geek out about original languages and those kind of things, and I think, I mean, that's just who the nerd community is, right? We find something we're excited about, we want to learn everything we can about it. We want to talk about it all the time. And so I think there's that part that's really fun, and kind of melds over. But I think, there's always been the occasional, it's bad.
Yeah.
It's demon work. But I think for the most part, it just, there's something about like storytelling and that kind of communication that feeds actually really well into like the personality of people who speak professionally for a living.
Did you have a ceremony? Words. I'm not good at them. When you were at seminary, what did you have a gaming group there?
We had kind of, yeah, we had a group that we played with, that we played more board games at that season. It just really wasn't like, couldn't really do a campaign.
Yeah.
But we did have like board game nights. I'm a pretty big board gamer as well. But now we have a group that's half clergy, half atheist, and we play on Sunday nights, and that's my D&D group. And so
do you guys spend the whole time trying to convince the other side to come on
not
over?
at all. Not at all. We are like so grateful we don't have to talk about religious stuff. We're just like, it's, I mean, it's also, we've all been friends for a long time too, and but it's pretty funny to watch like actual professional religious leaders play clerics like I almost said something horrible, like jerks. Like we play like really jerky clerics,
Yeah.
or like really pompous, kind of this this like extensive version of like mockery around our own careers, which everyone deeply appreciates because of what we all do.
Yeah.
So but I found some other like D&D kind of nerds, or RPG nerds that are religious people on TikTok as well. So we're around.
We were talking beforehand, and like I've met a bunch of people that are like, I started gaming in my youth group, or we game at our church. So there's definitely a lot of folks out there from all different walks of life.
Yeah, it's changed, I think.
Yeah. I think so, for the most part. Like, even in my personal life, occasionally I'll run into someone and they'll be like, "Oh, I don't know about that." I'm like, "I don't know, you're dumb." So
it's very rare for me these days. But then again, I mean, I curate the people I'm around as well, right?
Yeah.
There's like certain kinds of religious communities I refuse to associate with.
Makes sense.
I'll just leave it at that.
I mean, having been on a stream called Inclusion Check, I imagine, yeah, that makes sense. So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and like this, yeah.
so Rivers RPG channel wants to know: have you heard of the Christian Gamers Guild?
I have not.
I have no idea what that is.
I don't know what that
So,
is. I'll
oh
look
no,
it
I
up.
see writing. Research is going to happen. Yeah.
See, this is the true nerd, right? You're like, interesting. Let me take notes.
Let me find the thing.
I'll find it.
So do you GM, or are you just mostly a player?
So obviously I'm the storyteller for San Antonio by Night, so vampire.
Okay.
But I have not GM'd D&D or Pathfinder, which I'm willing to do. I think there's a part of me that's like, I'm too new to it.
I call bullshit. Because
Yeah,
here's
okay.
why. I feel like being the
Thanks, man.
storyteller for a game like Vampire is far more difficult than D&D, because D&D tends to be very linear in design and
That's
when
true.
you design games, which is far easier when you go into other systems where, I mean, you can do anything in D&D, but there's an expectation of there's going to be some purpose that you're going to try and fulfill or whatever. And from there, it gets very linear. But in other games like super games, vampires, modern sci-fi, where you're flying through the galaxy, I feel like all of that stuff feels way more open-ended and less
It's true.
confined.
That's true. It is very like we were talking the other day, and I was saying to my players, like, I need you to tell me which of these plot lines that I have given you that you all are planning on chasing in the next few episodes. And then I made a list, and there was like 15 threads that they could follow. And I'm like, maybe that was a bit much.
Yeah.
I maybe could have reeled it in a little, but it's in that whole, like, they're all happening simultaneously. So like whatever they decide, the world is going to continue down its own path. But I think that's true about like D&D, that it's far more linear. And because you do a little bit of plot, and then usually there's a combat, and then there's a little bit of plot, and then there's a combat. And there's just not a lot of combat in Vampire. It's all social and political interaction, for the most part. So I guess I could do it. I'm just chicken.
Yeah, you definitely do it. Maybe that's why I gravitate more to the D&D systems than the other ones, because there's a lot more social in them, and I don't like really being social in real life, let alone in my game life.
That's fair. I mean, I think part of what freaks me out a little bit about D&D is that this is where like the social aspect or the cultural aspect, right? There's so many folks that are just like, you're doing D&D wrong. And or there's that kind of like rules lawyer kind of situation. And I'm far more just like rule of cool kind of storyteller, right? Like, I want to, if it looks cool and it sounds cool and the dice kind of agree, then let's do the thing. So because I think it's more about just like mutual storytelling. It's not, I think the game gives us a structure to play in, but what's the point if we're not telling a good story together? So
yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. Like, whenever someone's like, I want to try this thing, I'm like, can I do this? I'm like, I don't know. Can you? Let's see. Let's roll some dice and see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, I can be persuaded. I think my players don't use this near far enough. I don't think they realize how easily I can be persuaded into like how they want to roll it. Like, if they want to try to min-max it based on whatever skills they have, if they can make a good argument for it, I'm down, So, yeah, I guess I've never played a module. And I guess that's how most people play D&D, or
Our
like
group has
everybody's
never ran modules.
yeah.
It's very rare. And even like, I mean, occasionally like I'll be like, I'm stuck for something to do, and I might grab an adventure that I kind of like ad lib a lot on
Yeah.
and tweak and change. But even then, like generally the players they never know when I insert something like that. So
Sure. Sure. I guess I think about like there's a lot of people playing Curse of Strahd right now. And
yeah,
so they all like so everybody seems to know what's happening with everyone else. You know, they're like, "Oh,
yeah,
we're at this point." And I mean, that's cool that like there's kind of this mutual story that's happening across multiple groups. But for me it's like I don't know, maybe I would feel too like bound by it, but it might help me in a like getting going kind of way.
so I've got one group that I play with online. It's this Saturday morning group. We get together, and it started as a wild mount game
Uh-huh.
that went to Ravenloft for Curse of Strahd, and that was actually the first 5e adventure I'd actually run through. Um, and now it's just like we're like working our way through the different domains of dread and switching DMs and stuff. But prior to that, like we've always just homebrewed everything. Um, to me, and honestly, it's out of laziness. Like I look at an adventure, I'm like, oh, it looks like a lot of work to read that and then tweak it. Like I don't know if you do a lot
Want to
of prep.
read, I just want to pretend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I don't know if you're a heavy. I don't know if you're like a heavy prep DM or not. We aren't. So
Yeah.
like most of my prep happens in the session I'm playing right now, and that's like the prep for next session.
My prep for the world was very heavy, and I made this scrapbook. Like it's, do you want to see it? It's really nerdy. This
Sure,
is super
sure.
nerdy. um
I was just thinking
so
though, like that's the most mom thing ever. Like I made this scrapbook.
it is the most mock. Like, so here's like the list of the leaders, and here's the dividing of the city and who has what, like,
Oh
and
my.
then it's got like all of the the clans and the primogens and the governors in each section and my notes. I mean, it's ridiculous,
That is
but
thorough. That's
it is
impressive.
thorough. But once the game started, it all like it stopped, right? So it was all world building for
Yeah.
me. Because now it's our world, it's not just my world. And so I set the plot, like the incident in motion. But now I know I know what's happening in general.
Yeah.
um because I had built the world very thoroughly, but now they can play in the city as much as they want, because I already know it all ish, right? So when it comes to the actual game, like prepping for an actual session, I don't do much of that aside from just like I said, the most I've ever asked them is like, generally, can you tell me where you're planning on heading so that I might have a sense of who you might encounter. But if they just, pick up and head off to another part of the city and they want to do another plot, then I'll run with them, you know.
Yeah, we totally did the bait and switch on our GM who did get to a spot where it's like, okay, so you guys made it clear you're either going to this spot or that spot. Which one are you going to do? And we're like, we're going to definitely do this one, and then showed up and totally did the other one. It wasn't intentional. It just kind of happened. Like
It
players are
happened.
like herding cats, right? So it's
They
like,
are. They are. And like it's so funny because I was complaining the other day, like there's just like basic things they should have been doing or known and ask about, basic questions. And I was complaining to my brother about how my players seem to have just their brains go away as soon as they sit down at the table.
yeah.
And then literally that night I'm on my D&D game, and there's this puzzle we're trying to solve, and finally my GM tells me to roll an intelligence check. He's like, you have this ability to do the thing. It's almost like I built this thing specifically because of the ability you have. I was like, cool.
you know, my solution to that is when I come up with puzzles and things that have to be solved, I no longer create the answer.
Hmm.
And I will pick the best one they come up with. Because
Yeah.
like if you've ever seen the meme where someone's like, I need a good puzzle for my D&D players, they're like, go get a preschool book or a kindergarten book of puzzles and use that. And the person's like, that's so mean. And they're like, oh, I just played my session last night. You were so right.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it is. Like, we just, all brain capacity just seeps out through our arms into the dice.
And it's so unpredictable too, right? Because like in some instance you'll be like, okay, a brain dead child could solve this puzzle. This should be easy for them. No one gets it. And then you put something out there that's like you think's impossible, and in 10 seconds, like they
have
know.
it. Yeah. It's
So.
just, you can't win.
No. So Wences wants to know, what was both of your first D&D race class choices?
Oh, I have two right now, two D&D characters, but my first one was a Kenku trickster cleric.
Nice. So I have to literally go back like 30 years. And I do remember, it's one of the few characters I do remember for that reason. So a wood elf druid fighter in AD&D named Derek Woodstalker.
Nice.
But that feels like several lifetimes ago.
You were a druid fighter, is that what you said? So you
Yeah, druid fighter.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, druids were much harder than you had to wait a much longer time before you could wild shape.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah, everything was harder back then. Math that didn't make any sense, charts for no reason. Yeah, it's just what we did, I guess.
My other character right now is a wildfire druid.
Yeah. Were you upset when they got rid of Fireball?
I had a meltdown over it. Yeah.
Yeah. I know there was a lot of anguish over that.
Yeah. I have a whole like raging TikTok about it. But that it's just not it's just too on brand to not let us have Fireball. But
I know the light cleric gets Fireball. Why not give it to the wildfire druid?
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
I've talked my GM into like letting me morph it a little bit. So
yeah, I think that's a gimme I would definitely do.
Yeah.
For sure. So
but my Kenku has been really fun. And you know, I think like a lot of people are like, you played a Kenku for your first D&D character.
Yeah.
But I have like I have a lot of voices. That's part of what is, I don't know, I guess that's something my players really love about vampire. And so I get to kind of do all these different voices and as my Kenku. And so that's been really, I don't know. I love the Kenku. They're just so much.
They are fun. I've only played one Kenku, and it was a Beastmaster Ranger. The Kenko's name was Get Out of Here. Yes. Because like I played them, I think I was an urchin, and I played them as like a woman who owned like a pet store or something, accidentally ended up with a Kenku egg.
Yeah.
And like kind of raised them for a little while, then chased them away. And it's always been this game of like she kind of takes care of him, but is also always chasing him away. Yeah. And yelling, get out of here. So that's where the name came from.
Yeah. My Kenku's name is Vale. And I have this like little child voice that I use when someone asks what their name is. And it's like, I think I'll call you Vale. And so
yeah. Kenku are fun too, because you get to make up like language stuff where it's like you're talking about money, like you just maybe it's just the sound of coins clinking or
yeah. Or like my favorite is trying to barter as the Kenku. With whatever language I happen to have. Oh, it's so fun. So I have like a series of them, like, because like the king who grew up in like a port town, and so there's
Yeah.
like try to like tell them how much fresh fish is, um and they're like, no, we're talking about the shield, it's there's always like this fun interchange. So
Do you have any plans to do more streaming in the future?
yeah, I think so. It's been this has been really fun, and like I said, I think I said to you before, we made affiliate really quickly, and it's been really kind of overwhelming, like how much people love the show and love all that, and there's like an endorphin rush that comes from that, right? That
Yeah.
people are enjoying your story and meeting your characters, and I think I I certainly had not, prior to the last 2 months, thought about streaming gaming, but it's been so much fun, and I've really like connected with such a wider community that I can't see it going away.
It's actually it's kind of like your worlds colliding, right? Because over the past year and a half, I feel like a lot of churches have become streamers as well.
Yeah, exactly. So like I pastored through the main part of the pandemic. I shared before that I'm on sabbatical right now, but
Yeah.
from lockdown until July, um it, I took a church that didn't have any equipment for that, and I started streaming and recording, and so I learned all of this skill from scratch over the last 2 years. We just kind of were thrown into the deep end, and so I think it's been really fun to like experience it in a way that's not super stressful, um that's not my primary job, that's
Yeah.
just getting to enjoy the
Well,
process, and I
it's
don't have to do all the editing, so that's lovely.
it's so good that you're able to cut your teeth on something that's not nearly as important to hone your skills so you can become a good RPG streamer.
Exactly, it's just petty stuff.
Yeah. And I'm being facetious if you can't
Oh,
tell.
I know
So
you are, I think it's just I mean, it's cool that, in a weird way, I mean, I have been trying to find things that are blessings or goodness that has come out of this weird season, right, of the pandemic and all the other
yeah.
things. But I honestly think that what the pandemic has done for gaming and streaming, I think, is really remarkable, right? I mean, I always played at a regular table, right? With with folks. I mean, we played this one game with all of our clergy, but because we're all over the country. But the fact that we have these spaces, we have these tools, we have these things now, and we're skilled enough to use them, that I'm able to run a table with 5 different time zones,
Yeah.
2 of which are in Australia, weekly, and that we can share that I can have these people from literally all over the world, is pretty cool.
I've at this point played with someone on every continent but Antarctica.
Yeah.
Still waiting to check that box off, but we'll see.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that's like, it's so cool. And that's, I think, the benefit that has really come out, at least in the gaming world, that I feel like we're just far more connected than we were before. And I, I'm getting to share the table with people I would have never known or never been able to share the table with. And so I think that's really, I don't know. I think it's kind of remarkable. So
So, when you guys play Theater of the Mind, or do you guys use like a VTT?
We use theater of the mind for the most part, but again, like I mean, we're 10 episodes in and they haven't had a real combat yet.
Yeah.
So, because that's just how vampire is. I mean, they've hunted people and there have been fights, but there's not like a real. And I'm kind of not a map person. I just really prefer theater of the mind. But for some reason, I don't mind it so much with D&D and Pathfinder. Like I like to know exactly where I am, but I feel like
Those games are a lot more tactical.
right, and it like your radius matters more and those kind of things. So whereas, you know, can you hit the person, and Vampire works very hard to like keep combat streamlined. Like they suggest you have no more than 3 rounds in Vampire.
How long is a round in Vampire?
Anywhere from 3 minutes or 3 seconds to 3 hours.
That's very precise.
And that is written in the rules. Because of the abilities. So like some of the abilities last for a really, you know, a long time. Dominate, some of those kind of things. But so a physical combat round, like a melee combat round, is kind of more in that 6 seconds, 1 minute kind of range. But yeah, they really like, they don't want you to have, they specifically have worked in the way that they do combat to have combat not interrupt the story. And so they've been like, the book is very clear, the system is very clear that like combat should enhance the narrative, not stop the narrative.
And in the Vampire game, you're the storyteller, like you're running the game, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So what is the premise for the game then?
Sure. Yeah. The like shortened version of what it is essentially, it's the main story right now is the players are basically found themselves dead and created into brand new vampires, and their job is to figure out who done it to them and work into this whole new world. So it's almost like a murder mystery where the victims are solving the crime.
Are they playing from like different houses?
They are. Yeah.
It is houses, right? Is
clans.
That right?
Yeah.
Clans, yeah.
Yeah. And so so that's the like main plot that's happening around the players. And then in the larger city, it's set in San Antonio, and I built the city before 5e came out, and so it was before like the end of the Sabbat and the Second Inquisition and all this other lore stuff that they added in. And so so I have tried to meld some of that, but some of it is the old lore, that like there's a Sabbat incursion coming from the south, and so the city is kind of this last stand with the Alamo, pun intended, to keep the Sabbat at bay. So the city's at war, and then these 5 brand new vampires show up in the 5 regions of the city, and kind of uproot the whole internal war structure that the city itself was using. And so they've messed with the city structure by existing, and they've broken all the rules of the Camarilla by existing, but they still don't know who did it. And so who is trying to affect the city structure with their existence is what they're working on.
So, you know, this kind of like mystery they're trying to unravel, it all happened to them all at the same time, but they're from different clans.
It did. Yeah. They all wake up on the same night. Yeah. In 5 different areas, in 5 different scenarios, but there were like commonalities to how they like woke up. And so that's also the untraditional thing about the game too, right? Normally when you play vampire, you've been a vampire for 20 years, 100 years. You're not, you don't have this like fresh, how do I get rid of my family? What do I do about my ties? How do I get rid of my apartment? What about my cat? You know, like you don't have that stuff.
That was oddly specific. Who has the cat?
Claudia has the cat. And so like so Linen and Spice is her name on TikTok. But So then how do they
I
how
feel
do they
like
get rid of this life and move into this kindred life? It's cool.
I feel like you can keep the cat. Like animals are far less judgy than people.
Yeah, yeah, they have decided to keep the cat.
That's good.
um I just have warned them that like somebody gets too hungry,
Oh yeah.
the cat's going down. Like you just need to be aware.
It's only one thing to do. Turn the cat before someone can get to it.
Exactly. Ghoul the cat.
That's crazy. So how long do you anticipate this game's going to go on? Do you have a set number of sessions, or is it open ended?
It's open ended.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to run it as long as they're having fun.
Makes sense.
So and there is a final point that they can get to. So there is a definite end to the plot that they are capable of getting to. Do I don't know that I believe they're going to get there ever, but there is a plot point they can get to that would end the game for sure.
So is Vampire your game of choice?
What I don't ask me that in a different way.
Okay.
That?
Is Vampire your favorite RPG?
Oh, is it my game of choice?
Yes.
I see. I thought you were asking if like there was a way that a mechanic. It is my game of choice. Yeah, I think so. That and Deadlands. Deadlands is my other game of choice.
Yeah. Which version of Deadlands?
I mean, so I guess the earlier one,
like not the Savage Worlds one.
No.
Okay.
No.
I haven't played any, so it doesn't matter. I think it's a cool concept. I've just never had gotten the opportunity to play it.
I like it because it's one of the things I like about it is that it thematically works really well, but it's one of those games that does not translate online well, right? Because you use a shared deck of cards and you play, the combat is determined by a deck of cards.
Yeah.
Your point system is based on poker chips. And so it's all like themed in this old West kind of gambling sense, which fits the lore really well. But it does not translate away from a table very well, like a mutual table.
Yeah. So. Well, I wonder with a VTT if it would work, like depending on.
Yeah.
Because then you can have the shared objects if it's on there.
Yeah.
I don't know. So we tried. We did a stream a while back for Torg Eternity for their newest version of that.
Yeah.
And that's got cards, it's got chips and tokens and stuff, and I could definitely we had fun with it, but it was definitely seemed like a far better game for the table than trying to do a stream and implement something online.
Yeah. Torg is one of the ones that's been suggested to me recently that I pick up and try.
It was so it seemed so. What I know of Savage Worlds, it looks like it was influenced heavily by the original Torg, but also like Torg is weird because like, while it was fun to play, it's also like roll a die, look on the chart, add some like. There's definitely some aspects of it that I could do without.
Yeah. I think that was actually like, I mean, not to hate on Pathfinder.
Yeah.
But that was my main complaint with Pathfinder, was that there was so much math involved and like other things coming into like the role that it didn't feel like anything was like I could know if it was a good roll or not. And so I lost the endorphin rush of rolling my die and knowing whether or not it was semi decent.
You're like, that let me do a bunch of math.
Yeah, I'm like, is a 38 good? And they're like, you don't succeed. And I'm like, like, how can I have rolled a 38 and not succeed? That is BS.
Yeah.
And so that, like I had a couple of table flip moments with Pathfinder as we were like, I'm like, I don't understand this doesn't translate to me. Like I need to just have a baseline. The fact that we like 20 is great,
Yeah.
10 is mediocre, 1 is bad. Like that makes sense to me. So
Yeah, as the older I get, the more I gravitate towards more like rules light games.
mhm,
Like,
mhm.
so our the next game we're playing that we're streaming, I guess it'll start next beginning of next year, is another Cipher System game, which is that's got a little bit of convoluted math in it too. I mean, it's still simple, but
Yeah.
it's I don't know if you've played Cipher System or not.
Mm-mm. Is that the superhero one?
Yeah, yeah. They like it's generic, so you can kind of play anything. Like Numenera and the Strange is based off of this. Well, it's not quite accurate, but like the Cipher system is the system that Numenera and the Strange uses, but it was like reversed engineered to be generic because it was Numenera first, and then they turned it into a generic system.
Yeah.
But it works on like this factor of 3, right? So your difficulty is like 1 through 10, but it's like you have to multiply that number by 3 to get the real number. And then there's things that can make it go up and down. And like I'm getting confused just trying to explain it. It's not like hard, but it does seems like redundant math. And then like the problem that I'll have is like I'll like go to tell the players what they need, and then they got to figure out if I told them what they need or if I gave them the difficulty, because I would flip back and forth between the doing the two, which is
Yeah.
not super helpful for them either.
Yeah, you guys will work out a system, right? I mean, some
Yeah,
of that's just like figuring out the kinks of it.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I think here's maybe what it is. So like when it comes to board games, I don't know how much you do board games, but like
I'm
I
a
can't
filthy casual.
okay, I can't stand fiddly bits
Yeah,
in a board game, right? So like the little bits that are like the little counters for no reason,
yeah.
and like and in some ways it feels like that's what makes me crazy in RPGs as well, right? Like
Oh yeah, yeah. I totally, so we actually in December, like it was impossible to get any of our groups together, our in-person groups together. So we just kind of like had one day, and it's like if you're part of one of the groups, you can show up and we'll do board games or something. And my brother shows up with this parks game, and it's like national parks and stuff, and it's like based off of that. And I took one look at it and I, no thanks. And they had been playing it for several hours.
yeah.
And then and like I don't like Settlers of Catan or Risk or a lot of those games. Uh these have zero appeal to me. Like if I'm gonna be playing a game that long, like I'd rather just be playing an RPG.
Right.
And so I saw that. I was like, oh, I'm glad I didn't get in on this. And then when I was at PAX Unplugged, I ran into one of my friends, and she's like, here's so and so. He made these games and that game Parks. And I'm like, I won't tell him how much I hated this game on site. I won't tell him how much I hated this game on site. And like some of their cool concepts, but like I like Smash Up, right? I like Quarriers. I like Zombie Dice. I play tabletop
I love
games.
zombie dice.
Yeah, I like to do things that I don't really have to think a whole lot about
Yes.
while I'm doing them, and I'm just
Yes.
kind of like hanging out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'd rather play like a bunch of play the game over and over again than play one game for 6 hours.
Yeah.
One of the few games that I do like that's like longer was probably Betrayer, but I feel like it's always different, and it just engages me the right way.
Yeah. I really like, I mean, I like mutual marketplace games. Um, so like where you're kind of building your own thing, but there's like a shared marketplace that you're competing against.
Okay.
Those are kind of more my type of games that I really like Splendor and Alhambra and that kind of range.
We had someone on the show that had kickstarted a game that was like that, but for tea.
Huh.
And you could like, and also I think the game came with tea as well. So the idea was like you're a tea shop vendor, and like you'd have to buy the stuff and have different teas. And then also they had made another game called Cantankerous Cats. and like one of the
That's a
things that they had
beautiful name.
done, one of the crossovers they had done was catnip tea, and I'm like, you can drink catnip. That's weird.
I didn't know
But
you could do that either.
yeah, so like then the stream was like all about what kind of D&D race would drink what kind of tea,
Yes.
or fantasy creature would drink what kind of tea.
Yes.
Yeah.
I maybe should do like a series on the. I should do like what's your class, and what kind of coffee do they drink? Because I'm not really a tea drinker, but I'm like a hardcore coffee drinker. So
Yeah. Joseph says I should ask you about the first time you played Munchkin.
oh God. You're a troll, Joseph Tabor. You're a troll. It wasn't the first time, but he's trying to tell us, he wants me to tell the story about my first major fight in my marriage was over the game Munchkin.
I could see that. I could definitely see that.
We were newly married. We were at my boss's house. We got in an argument about a particular card that determined who would or would not win the game. And I did not agree with my spouse's version and of interpretation and trying to steal my win. There might have been a table flip. There was definitely like screaming that happened at my boss's house. We were like married like a month, and I have like a signed copy of Munchkin from Steve Jackson.
Yeah.
And like, we don't play Munchkin because even just the mention of it like restarts this fight that we have.
I mean, you're a reverend. Can you condemn him to hell for making the wrong call?
Huh?
You're a reverend. Can you condemn them to hell for making the wrong call?
I mean, he's also a reverend, so he has condemned me mutually.
Oh, damn it.
Yeah, it's so we're both like, it's just a fight that's like it's we pretend it's a playful fight.
Yeah.
But truthfully, like
someone almost got stabbed.
Yeah, somebody almost gets stabbed every time. And but I think like, isn't that the point of Munchkin?
There's a much, so that used to be our Christmas Day game. Like my brothers would come over, Ted would come over, who's my business partner and brother-in-law. And then like now the kids got old enough to play. So we used to play Munchkin all the time.
Yeah.
And my wife hates playing it with us because we're mean.
Yeah.
But like that's kind of the point of Munchkin.
It is the point. Yeah.
Is like, picking the most opportune moment to be mean. But we've recently switched over the last couple of years to Dungeon Mayhem. I think it's a much better game, and it's far more honest because your only objective is to kill the other players.
Nice.
So it's based off of the D&D characters and monsters, and you play one of those, and you have cards, and you're going to play those cards, and they either are going to enhance your hand, defend you, or kill somebody. And so it's very honest. Where Munchkin, like, you can kind of like compete against the deck kind of and keep going, but eventually when you really want to win and someone's about to win, you got to be a jerk.
Right. And you gotta do some shady things, and you gotta interpret things in a shady way.
Yeah. And your husband's probably going to cheat.
He cheated. Definitely. It's funny.
I've met you. I don't know him. I'll take your side until I meet him. Then I might change, but we'll see.
Well, what's funny is, so like, it came out on TikTok, right? Like the fight came out early on, and they were like, just tell us the deal. And it was amazing how many people were split right down the middle. It's actually like, what's remarkable is both rulings, my ruling and his ruling, are actually technically both correct.
Yeah.
But which is even worse, because there's still no answer. And 10 years later, and we're still fighting about fucking Munchkin games. Like, it's ridiculous.
I mean, if the game doesn't destroy marriages and friendships, is it even a good game?
Is it even a Steve Jackson game if it doesn't do that?
You know, Monopoly kind of has that same effect. It just takes longer.
It does. It
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
But I think by that point, by the time you get done with Monopoly, you're just so worn down, you
Yeah.
know.
That's why, like, one of the reasons why I've kind of gravitated away from Munchkin is because the fact that, like, the game's about to end and inevitably somebody does something and it doesn't, and it just keeps going on and on and on.
Yeah.
And also, we ended up getting, like, all the expansions and all the decks, so it's like, and we mix them. So it's like Supers and Cthulhu and Spy and whatever.
Yeah.
It gets obnoxious.
Pirates and the whole thing.
Yeah. You just got piles of cards everywhere.
Yeah. And there's, at that point, it gets to be like too many rules to tolerate. You know?
You're like, and I got a plus 50. Does that kill it?
Yeah, exactly. You may have gathered that, like, I'm not the biggest fan of constricting rules from our conversation. So, you know, I think that's part of it, that it just, like, it gets so too many layers.
Yeah.
That it like has lost some of the, I don't know, gravitas.
Yeah, I highly recommend replacing Munchkin with Dungeon Mayhem.
Okay.
It's more pure and honest.
Nice. I will look into it. We tried to play is it Arcadia, I think?
Someone actually just mentioned Arcadia in the chat. I don't know what that, I'm not familiar with that game.
Yeah, so it's similar. It's a PvP, but it has minis and a map.
Okay.
And so it's like a little more dungeon crawly, but it's a PvP, and it is also very cutthroat. My second table flip in our marriage had to do with Arcadia. Come to think of it,
yeah, I'm starting to observe a reoccurring theme here.
Yeah, I come by my red hair naturally. Like, it just, the fury. There's a lot of fury, which is maybe why I play like a very dark, like, I love very dark, menacing games. So.
Huh. Do you give dark sermons?
No, I don't think so. What's funny is I'm like this like rage monster with a bubbly personality.
So there's no podium flips.
No, I've never, but I do like hit the podium. I get like excited enough that I like hit the, hit the, again, it's just being a nerd. Like, I just get excited about things. I'm passionate.
Have you played Quarriers?
No.
Do you like deck builders?
Yeah, I don't mind them.
Yeah, so it's like that, but with dice. Right?
Oh.
So you build a dice pool. And so, like, the way it works is you put out 4 monster cards, 3 spell cards, and then there's like 3 cards that are always out, and they all have dice on them. And so when you start off, you're trying to buy from the wild, which is the spells and the dice that go into your bag, and you're like slowly trying to get rid of the ones that are your like generic ones that you start with, so you can have the more powerful ones. And then so basically you're like summoning spells and monsters that are these dice.
I haven't heard that. What's that one called?
Quarriers with a Q. So like warriors, but Quarriers instead. That's a lot of fun.
Nice.
And then I guess that's one of my go-tos, and then Smash Up.
Okay.
Have you played Smash Up?
I'm familiar with Smash Up. I have not played it.
Yeah, I just like stupid easy games.
Yeah.
And like Smash Up just calls to me. It's like you got every kind of theme you could ever think of, and you put 2 of them together. So.
Yes. Yeah. Which is fun. Like they played a lot of Smash Up at the game store.
Yeah.
So which I think, that was back when I was busy playing Magic the Gathering. So
I've never I don't think I've ever played a single game of Magic the Gathering.
Oh no. Are we gonna have to revoke your nerd card?
Maybe.
Like you have to have played at least one game. You
It
need to go
came.
render that.
I like. I've probably played. I've probably played with Ted once or twice using
There
his
you go.
cards.
Okay,
But
that's
but
fair. I mean, as long as you played once, you understand like
yeah. But it definitely
general.
came out after my time.
Yeah, yeah,
Like I feel like I was in my early 20s when the Magic the Gathering scene was happening.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I was certainly in like early generation,
Yeah.
you know, Magic, and then I like put it to the side, and then it had a resurgence a couple years ago, and
I remember Ted and all of his friends like pulling together to just buy boxes
yeah,
of them when the new one would come out. Like years later, he ended up selling like his collection and buying like a car.
oh man,
He's like, I don't
that's
really
not
play anymore, but I need a car. So,
exactly.
hmm.
Oh, that's funny.
So there's claims that you flip tables during church committee meetings.
Huh. I don't know about that.
Joseph says, church committee meetings where Rose flips tables. It's inspiring.
I mean, it would be inspiring. He, I, I mean, Jesus flipped tables, so like, it's not so horrible,
Yeah.
you know. Like,
Just what would Jesus do? And like flip the table.
flip the table. Actually, I've always said to our local, to my friend that owns the game store, I'm like, seriously, you need to just have a table with like chess or something set up on it
For
in the
flipping.
corner. Yeah, that you just like let people pay to flip.
Oh yeah, that would be great. Like a swear jar, but it's the
Yeah,
flip
but
jar, and then
right, you just like it's you know, it's like $10 to flip the table, and then
who resets it up afterwards?
the staff resets it.
Yeah,
You don't even have to reset. Like you get to like have a literal rage flip, and
walk away. Put your money
yeah,
in the jar.
I mean, like I think it's gold. I think it's financial gold.
Yeah, I don't know. I would like to see that implemented to see how it works out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, or a flip room, maybe. Maybe you need like a, I
Don't they
don't
have a
know.
break? Like they have a break stuff. That was a thing, right?
Yeah, they
Where you
do. They have like those places you could go just take a baseball bat thing.
just smash stuff.
Apparently, I'm a barbarian.
Yeah. So Daniel says, and you might know this person.
I probably do.
Jesus would have played a rat on a stick properly.
Oh God. Now I'm being trolled.
Now you're being well, what's a live chat without a little trolling from friends?
Exactly. That's my gamer group. That's my D&D group. They're all watching.
Yeah, nice. I I think that should be I don't know if it's not. There should be a gaming store called Flip the Table, and they should implement that.
Yes.
There you thought of it. You should make that happen
I should make that
because you
happen.
don't have enough going on already.
I know, right? This could be my brand is Flip the Table.
Yeah.
That's it's actually a pretty good title.
I
Pretty
think so. It's kind of fun. I'm evoking.
good.
So when are we going to get to see you play? Why or not play, but run a D&D game?
I don't know. I I could probably, I mean, I've been wanting to do a one shot. There's a bunch of like, so I've been asked to do a D&D one shot
Yeah,
for a bunch of neurodivergent, like ADHD autistic TikTokers
yeah.
that I'm friends with. They're all like, run D&D for us. And I'm like, oh my God. But they're all new players. So
I'm sure it'll be fine.
that's a little scary. I don't know, but I'll figure it out. I could work it out. All I would have to do is make a TikTok and be like, who wants to be my guinea pigs for me to play a one shot?
So Shalander says Geek and Sundry used to let Erica Ishi, I'm probably butchering her last name, flip tables during charity streams.
Yeah. See, that's what I need.
They're
I need
speaking to you.
it is speaking to
So
me.
we are right at the hour mark. Final thoughts
Yeah.
before we head on out?
Um, no, I guess I didn't say this before, but we stream on Fridays at 7:30 Central on San Antonio by Night.
And you pre-record them pre-record them and then put them up. Do you guys like premiere them, like hang out while they're
We do.
playing?
So when it goes live, almost always the whole cast is in the chat.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about the pre-recording is that like nobody has to take notes during the session because they get to rewatch it
And
with everybody else. And so that's when everybody takes notes and stuff. But it's so you like it's cool because the whole cast and myself are all engaging with people.
Yeah, and you can interact that way too, because when you're actually in the game, sometimes it's a lot harder. You know, you're either paying attention to the chat or you're paying attention to to the game. It's hard to do both.
I mean, that's the fun part, I think, about it. And I think I shared this with you before. You know, we have a lot of our players are moms. So it's all female, people of color and queer table. And so so it's kind of it's a cool mixture of a table. And so but because several people are moms, we pre-record for the safety of our children faces, not on the internet. But yeah, 7:30 on Fridays Central Time US. And I don't know, nothing else really. This has just been a lot of fun to hang out. So
well, as always, folks, the links are in the description. Thanks for being on, Rose, and until next time, everyone, stay nerdy.